guys, we have a very special treat for you guys today. We are sitting down and talking via Zoom to the writer and director of a film that we saw at the Indie Street Film Festival back in the summer in Red Bank. It is Jordan Noel and Hudson Phillips. I'm going to be interviewing them today, as well as with Liz Seiko.
Yes, very excited.
And we're super excited to sit down with these guys. And we wanted to start just kind of from the basic of just filmmaking in general, because we love talking about the art of all of that. How did you guys both get into filmmaking in general?
Whoever wants to start.
Whoever wants to start. It's totally up to you guys.
Should we thumb war?
Yeah.
Jordan, you've got a good story about this. Why don't you jump into it?
Well, I'll try to keep it somewhat brief. I grew up without a television. Is the fun first part. So I mean, we went to the movies and we had a VCR and a like a computer monitor, so we could like rent some VHSs, and we owned a couple. And so it wasn't. I didn't grow up totally under a rock, but it wasn't like there was no camcorder in our house. I didn't grow up in this way. That was, like I wasn't making movies when I was 8.
Yeah.
But I loved them, and I was always very interested in it. And so in my early 20s, I finally got like a secondhand camcorder and I was touring a lot, traveling a lot, and I just started documenting as much as possible and then editing all that together, and I fell in love with the process. And I would do like a little premiere for these like tour travel documentaries that I'd make. And then I started making music videos accidentally when I was doing art direction for a band, and they had a guitarist named Jordan, and their manager was like sending an email to the band, and he's like, "Hey, we need to find a director for our first video." And he accidentally sent it to me, Jordan, instead of the guitarist Jordan, and I jumped on that as quickly as possible, and kind of BS'd them a little bit about my abilities. Even though I had some experience, but I certainly had never really done anything like that. And I pitched them on an idea, and they bought it. And so we made a video, and then I made maybe 4 more for them. Started doing a lot of music videos, and then ran into Hudson, who we had known each other for a long time, but not well. Ran into him at a show, and he was writing and pitched me on a short film to start doing some narrative stuff, and I fell in love with it. And that first short film we made, I totally fell in love with narrative filmmaking, and it's basically all I've wanted to do since we made that in 2011.
Nice. I love that you had no TV growing up, and now you're a film director. That's incredible. That was actually going to be my next question of how did you two meet necessarily or start to collaborate? Because I saw just through looking at both of your filmography. So this is your 6th collaboration, right? With shorts and features combined, or have you guys had more that just hasn't been necessarily put out?
I have no idea. I've never counted. Have you, Hudson?
Oh.
No, there's probably some additional things in there. Like we've done some like commercial work, or like, doing interviews and that kind of things. They wouldn't be on there, but yeah, maybe narrative, maybe that's all there is. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. And
yeah, but
yeah, go ahead.
I'll pick up where Jordan left off there in terms of us working together. So I had been writing since I was young. I was a painfully shy, socially anxious kid, and so writing was my way of finding my voice. I also lost my father when I was young, and movies kind of became my way of dealing with that, and kind of disappearing into film, both kind of escapism things, and then also movies that like I saw myself reflected on screen and my grief reflected on screen. And so there was a lot of healing between all of these kind of mixture of movies and writing. And it wasn't until I was in my 20s that I was like, oh wait, you can actually combine these things and turn it into something. So I started writing with a couple buddies. So as opposed to Jordan, we actually did shoot stuff on camcorders in high school and school projects and all that kind of stuff. And so a couple of those guys and I started writing together, found some early success, and then weren't able to replicate that success. So we'd sold a script to Lionsgate Films. It was only our 2nd script that we had ever written. And so we were like, we're in. And then we're like interviewed on like local media and like on the radio and in the newspaper, which tells you how old I am, I think, by those details. But and then just had the hardest time continuing that success, and kind of everything with that project that could go wrong did go wrong. And so that's when I ran into Jordan. Was at this phase of, it had been, almost a decade since I've sold something. I was writing, couldn't make anything happen, was really kind of in this depressed space of like, oh, I want to do this thing. I've fallen in love with this thing of writing screenplays and I can't do it, and just how frustrating that is. And then ran into Jordan, and he was making music videos. And I was like, wait a second. Why can't we just go make something? And of course, there's all the caveats you have with that. Well, we don't have any money, we don't have any experience, we don't know the right people. And what we found was that when we just started acting like we were doing the thing, we started to attract all those things. We had a little bit of money come in, we had the right people come in. A lot of people were happened to be moving to Atlanta at that time for work, because so much stuff was being shot here. And so we had zero experience when our first day on that first short film, which was called Rooney's World, which, by the way, was also crazy ambitious for short. It was 20 minutes long. It's a mixture of live action and animation. It was like we had no idea what we were doing, so we just swung for the fences, which kind of describes, I think, everything that we do still. But yeah, so we made that first short film, and it was film school for us. We learned more in that first. I think it was a really long first day. It was like 18 hours or something. In that first 18 hours, than we had in the previous, I don't know what, 25, 30 years of trying to get stuff done before then. And then we just fell in love with it and kept doing it as much as possible. So handful of short films. I guess there's let's see, subtract the features, and you've got the 4 short films, something like that in there. And then I sent Jordan an idea for a new short, where it's like it had been a minute since we made something. I had written this short, and I was kind of like, well, it's like really the first like 10 pages of a feature, but I hadn't fleshed it all out yet. And Jordan said, well, why don't we just go make that feature? And we're like, okay. Is that even possible? Again, it's like, it felt so out of reach. Again, no money, no connections, no, we personally didn't have any money. We are struggling to make ends meet as a couple of freelance designers and parents and all these other things that got in the way of doing that thing. But once again, we just kind of moved forward it and believed in it. And I sent him that email in May of 2017, and we were shooting by August of 2017. So we had written the script, grabbed the cast, grabbed some money, and went and shot that thing. Which I hope is inspiring to people of like, here are these 2 guys who had no idea what they're doing, and had no experience, no connections, no money, and were able to make these things happen. And we learned so much from that experience, and also fell in love with that so much that we were like, we can't go back to short films now. So that was our first feature we shot in 2017, called This World Alone. It was released a number of years later on Hulu, and had a very, we were very happy with how that turned out. And then we followed that up, 5 years later with Guacamole Yesterdays, and are now finally getting.
There was a pandemic in there.
That's true. We had a lot get in the way.
Sprinkled in there.
Just a little thing called the global pandemic in between. Not a big deal at all. But no, it's definitely a testament to how well you guys have worked together throughout the years to come from all the different mediums that are like regarded as film. I mean, even music videos and things like that now adapting to this feature. And you said it's your second feature together, transitioning into the movie that we're here to talk to you guys about with Guacamole Yesterdays. With that film in particular, what was like the starting kernel for that film for you guys, and like which element was it that sort of sparked the interest at first? Was it visiting past memories, or was it maybe exploring the depths of a relationship or depression? There's a lot of different sort of themes mixed in this project. It is a big project.
Yeah, I think it started a couple of things. So one is we kind of always try to write to our budget. And so we had just shot This World Alone, which was shot almost all outside. And we dealt with weather, and we dealt with like bees and spiders and a bug flying into our actor's eyeball, and like all these kind of things. We're like, hey, let's shoot something inside. And so we were kind of inspired by movies like the one I love is one where it's like super contained, basically 2 people in one house kind of story. And so we knew we wanted to write that. We knew Jordan and I, our first feature came out of a lot of conversations about parenting. And so we explored parenting in that movie, and we knew we wanted to explore relationships in this one. So that it started. So you can start to see like it's not really like a aha moment. It's like, let's take this piece of, you know, two people in one house. Let's take this piece of about relationships. I can't write anything that doesn't lean into genre in some way. So we started to pick up kind of these genre elements and like how can we all like merge all of these ideas and constant inspiration into hopefully one cohesive story, and then you keep adding those pieces and stuff. But I think that was really how it started, was the practical of two people in one house, and then the kind of conversations we were having at the time about, you know, past relationships and how they influence our present and how we look at those situations now and how they hold power over us, even though we've moved on, you know, with our lives and all those kind of things. And it kind of turned into what Guacamole is.
No, I mean, it's a beautiful story. I also think that something that I walked away just really resonating with, and especially now that you talked about just the struggle of kind of an artist and how you have to keep pushing forward if you are working in any sort of artistic medium. And there are a million reasons of why you can't do something, but at a certain point, it just comes down to, I love this thing and I'm going to push forward and get past all the no's. And yeah, this might not be successful, but I need to do this to fulfill myself. Um, and I just think that specifically with Franklin's character, that is so beautifully explored in your film. And I wanted to kind of just see how you guys felt. Is that something that you both have talked about in the past that you felt you wanted to explore and put through his character specifically, or was it like, did you know you wanted one character to feel that way, or was it something that you wanted in the overall scope of the film?
So it's a
Yeah,
big question.
yeah.
My immediate thought on that is that it was less like pointedly intentional and more like lived experience of what we're doing, and it comes out in that way, in Hudson's writing and in how I was interpreting it all and trying to put it on screen. It's just with Hudson and I, neither of us really went, I mean, went to college, but like neither of us graduated from college. We just have kind of been on this journeyman artist pursuit for forever, and trying to figure all that out, I think, is going to, you know, kind of naturally come out in what we do, especially when we're trying to tell a story about an artist, regardless of what kind of art they're doing. And I think we took a lot as well from Hudson and I we're very different from each other. And so we, I think, see a lot of the differences in the gray area of you know, what it looks like to be an artist or pursue something. We've also have friends that, you know, bits and pieces of them come into these characters as far as how they pursue or don't pursue or give up or, you know, persist in their artistic endeavors as well. So I don't remember any like intentional necessarily conversations exactly of like, well, let's make this character this way, as much as it was just it kind of coming out.
Yeah, I feel like both the characters, Ames and Franklin, are almost like two sides of myself. Like when I first set out to write the script, I think I was way more Ames. And then as I wrote it, I found such sympathy and empathy with Franklin that took on a lot of me as well. And I do think that every artist, and you know, in the movie, one of them is a comic book artist, a cartoonist, and the other is a comedian. Both things that like I wanted to do in the past but never have actually done. And I didn't want to write a movie about, you know, a screenwriter because that's so boring and cliche and happens all the time. And so I got to explore, you know, what it's like to do these, and you know, Jordan and I certainly deeply understand. I think these actors deeply understand what it's like to struggle and to want something and to find that passion and to not be able to live it. But I do think that I think every artist can relate with both sides. You know, Ames is very much, she has the benefit of being a little more successful, but she also has the benefit of having that blind like riskiness, and I believe this thing and I'm going to move towards it no matter what. I don't care if we're poor, I don't care if I fail, I'm just going to do it. And I can relate so much to that. And then Franklin's like, but wait, we have to pay rent, and I, you know, I want to get married and I want to have a family, and I'm tired of not having things that I want, and I've got this pressure from the outside. And I think both of those characters are all inside of every artist, and it's this constant battle between the two, you know. So while, yeah, like Jordan said, it wasn't super pointed, like we didn't set out to do that, but I think it came out very naturally as we were exploring these characters and really empathizing with both of them equally.
Yeah, hearing Hudson say that makes me remember that we had a long pre-production on this movie because it was written in 2018 and we were basically working on it for 3.5 years before we actually shot it. But we had a lot of conversations that I feel like both of us were relating with Ames, and it felt like a lot of it was us trying to figure out the Franklin. But I remember it because I didn't feel like I had any Franklin in me. Really, I was trying to figure out the people in my life who are like Franklin, and so I always related with Ames, and then the process of making it just like really flipped that on its head. And it was this movie, more than anything else we've made, I think really felt like an inward soul searching, like a real personal Everest or something in this very emotional and human spiritual way. It's been a very intense experience.
Yeah, as a viewer, it caused, and I talked to both of you guys after Indie Street when I saw the film personally, and it was very much an inward sort of reflectionary thing for me as a viewer. And it resonated with me on a deeper level because I've been someone who has suffered from depression similar to Franklin, but also an artist and someone who wants to do pretty much like everything while not having the means to understand how to go about it, and also wanting sort of that relationship with another person to either help you through it. But the biggest thing for me was the nuance of how you portrayed Franklin as someone with depression and how they would act and behave, especially to either distract themselves or sometimes other people around them through like comedy, to sort of take away from what they're actually going through. So I think it's a testament that art can do some amazing things, and seeing it through the lens of that, I wanted to first say thank you for doing such a great job of portraying that authentically. But my long-winded question is basically, how did those sequences come to you guys when you were showcasing Franklin's depression at the forefront of this story?
Well, first of all, I'll respond to the easy part of that and let Hudson take the other part. Thank you, Darian, and you, Liz, for making yourselves open and available to what we made. I mean, that's like the ultimate compliment. And talking with you after the screening was amazing because it's our dream to make things that actually can connect with anyone. You know what it's just still dreaming. I don't even know how to describe it other than that.
Yeah. In terms of, you know, how to explore, you know, depression and things like that accurately on screen. I mean, so much of that, I think, is what Randy Havens, who plays Franklin, brought to that character. He just brought like a real life to it that could have been played a million different ways. But in terms of our experience with that, people who really struggle with that kind of stuff, they have, you know, high moments and they have low moments, and that's something that we really wanted to explore accurately with him in this story. And you kind of have, you know, Ames kind of being like, wait, why would you ever choose to have a low moment? Why can't we be high all the time? Is kind of like the tension in the relationship. And I spent, you know, a number of years feeling that kind of vibe too, of like just not understanding it. And so yeah, I think you know, it's we wrote something on the page and then the actors bring something else to it, and not just, you know, Franklin, but the way that Ames interacts with him and the other characters interact with him. It just and the way Jordan directed them, it's, you know, it's the collaborative effort that brings it to life. But yeah, the goal was just, hey, let's tell a story that's filled with joy that also deals with some serious situations. And we've had so many people after screenings come up to us and say, thank you for writing this character in such an authentic way. And so that was, and we've had, just so many conversations after screenings that make us feel like, not like pat us on the back, but just that we created something that we set out to do, which is something authentic and honest. And people really seem to connect with that.
Yeah, I remember when we were at Indie Street, they had the little bit of Q&A with you guys after. And I believe you mentioned that Sophie Edwards, who plays Ames, the lead, you pretty much wrote this character a little bit with her in mind. And that Randy Havens, who plays Franklin, he actually came in last minute. Is that correct, right? You had a different actor initially playing Franklin?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is like, I love that you then say it's almost to Randy's like acting abilities too that helped that, because it's so crazy of just how casting ends up being that initially you would have had a completely different Franklin, and then you ended up having Randy, who for me was everything about this film too, just the way that he embodied the tension in the relationship, but then also the sensitivity of being an actor. And so I just kind of wanted to know, how was their chemistry, and how did it help enhance the story? And what elements really were surprising for you guys to see that they enhanced the story more than you expected?
Yeah, I'll tell the kind of the story of how we found both actors, and then Jordan, you can dive into the juicy stuff. But so Sophie Edwards, we'd worked with technically 3 times before, 2 shorts and a feature, and we just fell in love with her performance and what she brought. This just like really just natural feeling to every character that she played, and drastically different characters. And we're like, oh, she has something really special, and wasn't working nearly as much as we hoped that she would work. And so we're like, let's write something really great for her. So we had written Ames for her from the very beginning, and she lived with that character for 3-4 years before we shot. And so kind of
Wow.
like I think carried that as a weight for a very long time. And actually, from the time we wrote it to the time we shot, she had 2 kids. I think her youngest was 3 months old when we shot, and so she was
Something
going
like that.
through a ton of just a lot of physical changes and emotional changes. And so yeah, she really carried that weight all of that time, and her performance is flawless in it. And yeah, we had another actor attached for a number of years that we had wanted to work with, a local Atlanta actor who's like a fairly big name, and he had a scheduling conflict with a show that he was on. And so we had gotten funded, we're ready to roll, and he's like, I'm kind of like on call at the show, I'm not going to be able to do it. So we had to make that decision. Do we wait for him, or do we try to find someone else? And so we scrambled for 2 months trying to find somebody, and Randy was someone on our list. And so I had a mutual friend and just reached out to him because he's another local Atlanta actor on Stranger Things, and does a lot of like bit roles and like Marvel shows and stuff like that. And so we were aware of him, and reached out just over Instagram. So sent him a DM and said, hey, we wrote this script, we think if we'd love for you to check out this role if you're interested. He read it, he loved it, he immediately said, hey, yeah, I'm going to tell my agents that I want to do this, let's move forward. And that was like 2 weeks out from shooting. So then our first time meeting him, he walks in, and we're all wearing masks, and we have to do a table read and kind of like fittings and stuff like that a week out, maybe less than that. And then so our first time like seeing him perform this role at all, because he didn't audition or anything, was at this table read, and we could tell right there that it was going to be something special. And yeah, every single day he just brought like a real magic. And like you said, the movie doesn't work without the right actor in that role. And we got very, very, very lucky that he brought it to life in the way he did.
Yeah, but it was really interesting, and I would say that the whole thing was surprising because we hadn't made anything with with a lead actor that we didn't know yet. Like we knew the leads in This World Alone, all the short films we like had somewhat of a relationship with them previously, and Randy was an unknown. I mean, we knew that he was a pro, and we had a call with him and really enjoyed it, and like so we it wasn't a concern as far as whether we felt good about it or not. We felt great about him being cast as Franklin, and a lot of excitement about it. But you know, as director, I didn't know really all that well, like how he liked to work or how he liked to work with a director. I like to work. I love actors, so I like to work really closely with them. I love to give them space to do things. I love to work closely, like even physically closely, which is hard in a pandemic. I like to I'm not a like yell from the behind the camera, like, okay, hey, try this. I'm a like I get in there with them and really talk to them, and it's not for anybody else. It's just for me and the actors. And I just didn't know. And so he really surprised me the entire time, partly because I didn't know, and partly because he just embodied Franklin in such a magical way that that felt so real to me, even with all the cameras and the lights and everything around it. Just felt there was real weight to it. And with Sophie, I knew that we'd worked with her so much that I knew what that relationship was going to be like. And Sophie and I have been very close friends for a really long time. And she's also very different from Ames, which is interesting. So I like, you know, working with her, I knew what she's really like, as normal Sophie. And then we had talked so much about Ames that I knew a lot about her approach to Ames and how that was going to be, and kind of we knew how to navigate that together some. And with Randy, I really didn't. So it was always a surprise. And you know, Randy, and he also, you know, there's so many ups and downs just in that character that it was the depths that he would go to were always surprising, and the heights that the way that he could make us all laugh was amazing. As far as the two of them working together, I mean, just incredible chemistry. I mean, it was ridiculous that from the very first moment, they knew how to banter with each other. And that was what they figured out pretty early on, was that Ames and Franklin's relationship, like the core of that relationship is banter. I think you see that in that first date where they're learning on that first date how to talk to each other and make each other laugh and challenge each other in fun ways. And they were also like that as actors together, like as Sophie and Randy. And it couldn't have been more amazing than it was to work with the two of them on that. And also didn't really know Ada Tempo, who plays the therapist, and another just magical person that so much talent and warmth and just intelligence that she brings to every single aspect of it. And so working with her and Sophie, who didn't really know each other, but they just immediately hit it off. Ada Tempo was just like, she could probably just get she could just say, hey, follow me, and just the thousands of people would just follow her. She's incredible. Really the whole cast was just magic. And that's something we've been really fortunate in the whole time we've been making short films and features together, is we've just found either, you know, seeking them out or almost accidentally, just amazing people that are incredible to work with and have such talent. And so it's one of my favorite things, responses to hear from audiences, is how much they are impressed by the performances. It really brings me a lot of joy, because I love all these people that we work with, and I love it when people recognize how incredible they are.
Yeah, multiple people have said, I thought they were a real life couple that are both actors, like that's how like believable they were together. So I love that compliment. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, no, the chemistry on screen, it's showcased to the highest ability with Randy and Sophie's performances, and Ada Tempo too, who plays this sort of bridge to the other part of the story that we haven't really gotten into necessarily yet, and we don't want to spoil it because we know we're promoting this, and we definitely want everybody who's watching this to check out Guacamole Yesterdays when it is available. But on our second watch, it was like so interesting to start thinking about what actually happened versus what's changing as the film sort of goes on for Ames and things like that. Were there conversations between the two of you guys, either during the writing process or during production, and even maybe in the editing, about like what is real and what was like maybe into each individual viewer's interpretation of the sci-fi element of this story?
Pretty constantly. Not just between the two of us. It was a frequent topic on set. It was in all the pre-production lead up. It was many conversations with Sophie about, because for her, it's, it's how it's a lot to navigate as an actor, as far as, is this scene real? Do I know that this scene is real, or that, is it changed? What's changed? That sort of thing, because she has this character has that ability with this technology that she's using with the therapist. And so yeah, it was a lot of conversations, but and we don't necessarily agree. And we had a lot of conversations about, how important is it that it be, rock solid as far as what has changed or what hasn't. And I'm really very happy with where we landed, as far as giving the audience some collaborative ability there in the watching, and figuring out some of that for yourself. A disclaimer there, it's not it's not so vague of a story that you're like, wow, I don't understand it. It's that it can just, I think it can enrich an experience when you get to decide some of the things for yourself, and it allows for a lot of hopefully discussion and inner thinking about a piece of art after you've watched it or seen it, to have that.
Yeah, I hope people I hope people watch it and rewatch it, and they're dissecting and saying what's real, what's real, not. But I think at the end of the day, where I landed was kind of where you watch the movie like you experience your own memories. So like some of those memories are very accurate, some of them are way off and you don't realize it, some of them you have rewritten in your head. And I did a lot of studying and podcasts and TED Talks and articles and all that kind of stuff about just how inaccurate our memory actually is, and how we put so much weight on a lot of these memories, especially when it has to do with trauma and things like that, that we give so much weight to these memories that may not be all that accurate. And so hopefully you can let go of a little bit of that, and not be thinking about it. And I don't think you do think about it watching the movie, but yeah, just watch it with that mindset of yeah, it might be real, it might not, but the real takeaway is what do you do with those memories, whether they're accurate or not? What do you do moving forward? How can you rewrite your present in the same way that or your future in the same way that Ames is trying to rewrite her past? I think those are the kind of things that I hope people kind of leave with it.
Which is a way that we watch movies anyway, really. We watch a lot of movies or read a lot of books or whatever with narrators that we sort of inherently trust, but how much should we trust them? And I think part of the fun that we were able to have with this movie was that we sort of elevate that question a little bit more, or spotlight it a little bit more than usual. It was a lot of fun, and we had a really fun joke on set whenever we had an issue or something happened with continuity or something. And, it's a memory. It's
Which our script supervisor loved.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Well, I rewatched the film yesterday, and I also think it's a testament of when you can rewatch a film and it's just as exciting, or you're learning new things on the second watch. Because for me, since the veil was unlifted after watching the first one, I was going back and just little Easter eggs that I was picking up on the second watch, of saying, oh, I see that's different than that other scene. So maybe this is a memory, or is this the real version? And the one that I saw before is the memory. And so I just want to tell you both, it's an incredible second watch. I had a great time watching it again.
That's amazing.
And
Thank you.
Thank you.
what I also picked up a lot more of on the second watch is Ames's relationship with her sketches. I think
Mm.
for me as a second time watcher, it just added into the element of her dealing with her reality and different ways that you can escape memories through art, but then also just imagination. And I also just wanted to say, whoever the sketch artist is, they're incredible. The designing is gorgeous. How was that somebody that you both knew of, or did you go in and you had to find a sketch artist for it?
Yeah, that's an artist named Shadia Amin. She is a local Georgia artist, and she does stuff for Marvel. She has like a Spider Handbook. She does a ton of
Mm.
really fantastic artists. Who was recommended to us. I've been to a lot of comic book conventions. I'm in that world a little bit, and it's always been a dream of mine to kind of work in that world. So I do have some friends. So I would reach out to friends, be like, "Hey, who's a great artist that would be great for this?" We looked at a couple of them, and Shadia just really nailed it. And actually, hand drew all those panels, and so we have them
Wow.
among our different walls. Some key casting crew got some of those original panels, which are really really cool. But yeah, it was honestly that started as a budget consideration. It's how do we fill up some time on screen without having to film something? I mean, we technically film those, but it's not like it's a regular setup. So
Mhm.
let's fill it with some of these telling the story through her retelling the story through her comics. And so it's kind of a fun thing to explore, and gets to show her creative side, and why she's so passionate about it. And she has that line in the script where, or in the movie, where she says, I took my pain and I turned it into art, kind of talking about why she creates comics. And that's something that I feel like Jordan and I very much do, with our storytelling. And so
Mhm.
hopefully all that, I love that you connected to those parts, and we'll be sure to tell Shadia.
Yeah, it was gorgeous.
Yeah, the other thing in regard to the artistic nature of the film, which Jordan, you talked about this in the Q&A that Liz was talking about after Indie Street, was the color coordinating that sort of happened within the
Mhm.
film. Can you go into detail a little bit on what you set out to do with that and sort of the effect that it had for you as the director, sort of laying a template for a deeper meaning with these characters?
Yeah. Um, the the script, when we were first working with it, it's so complex in its jumping around in time, and emotionally complex. And our first feature was much more linear and sort of straightforward, and um, but I cared very much about color in that one too. But so in the lead up to Guacamole Yesterdays, I was making these sort of graphs that represented. I was trying to get a handle on some of what was real and what I thought was real and what wasn't, and what changed, and kind of just trying to understand the character. So I was making graphs about like how much Ames is drinking, which scenes is she drinking, and which is she not. And they were very colorful graphs, the timeline graphs, all these things. And I just started seeing the movie in color in this way, that it was broken up into all these colors. And there was also some we were talking a lot about how to differentiate the timeline, and talking about maybe using color. There was a little bit of that in the script as far as how to um, how to communicate to the audience what was different and what wasn't. And then I made this color wheel that had all the characters on it, and then the major, the key objects in the film. So like the confab machine is orange, and Franklin has a barista job. So there's a green apron. So that and then it started to work out where Ames had a color, Franklin had a color, the therapist had a color, and it was really fun to work out because it just kind of all clicked in on this color wheel, where we could have a lot of fun with leaving. Like the therapist color is yellow, and it doesn't show up in any of the Ames and Franklin scenes. And that became this way for me to organize in my brain how to make this movie work, and how to make sense of it for me, so that essentially a visual organizer of this complex and this complex story, and also have a lot of fun with it and make it as visual as possible. So it became a major focus of mine to really try to tell the story just with color. I've had these thoughts of it would almost be fun to experiment with, like, could we tell this story like just with color? Like if there was nothing else on screen, just the colors and the sound of the movie, like could we make it work? And so and it's
Director's
an
cut.
exercise. Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen. But it's an exercise in and especially since I edited this film, I think we already have the director's cut. But yeah, it was a really enriching way to organize the film and try to tell the story as much as possible through the use of color.
Have you done that in the past with some of like the past feature that you did, or is this the first one that you really dove into that?
Not nearly as much. With This World Alone, our first feature, it's post-apocalyptic, and the color green was very important to me in that film. And it's also a nature versus nurture story. So it was really important to highlight green and make a lot of it as green as possible. That nature was taking over this world that had been mostly lost. So no, not nearly to the extent that we did with Guacamole Yesterdays. That was just this movie, Guacamole Yesterdays, was just an extreme opportunity to really use color. Working on the next one that we're making, it's a little it's not the color isn't clicking quite as easily as it did with this story, but that's so much of the fun, is trying to find my way as director, since I'm not the writer. Finding my way into understanding and organizing it is I've found a very important practice in directing for me.
Hudson, what was your favorite scene in the script that you wrote? And Jordan, what was your favorite scene that you got to shoot?
Oh man. Great question. I mean, gosh, I'm trying to, like, it's easy to think of the ones that were most painful. It's harder to think of the ones that just kind of came easily. I mean, honestly, my favorite scenes, and this is the thing that happens a lot with the movies we make, where I'll kind of love a scene on page and then it takes on a new life, and like when the cast brings it together. So my favorite lines and my favorite scenes are always the one where the cast does most improvisation. Because I think it just surprises me. Like, it's the part that's not in my brain that I haven't gone over it a million times. And so and it's the moments that feel most natural. So I think my favorite moment in the entire movie is one where Ames and Franklin, they're on their first date. They're sitting on the couch. He'd just done this really embarrassing stand-up routine in front of her, and they're kind of ribbing each other. And it's this moment of just pure like connection and aim, and like they're ripping off each other, a bunch of stuff that I don't think I wrote any of those lines. Well, there's maybe 2 lines that I wrote, but they keep adding to it. And she takes a drink and he makes this joke and it makes her laugh so bad she spits it out, which is an outtake that we left in there as a real moment between these characters. And I think that's my favorite. I'm so like hungry for just real moments of like connection and empathy and just like surprise, and letting those walls down. Those are my favorite things in the movie, are those moments. So not necessarily things that I wrote, but just the way that the characters bring those to life.
Yeah, I'm very much the same in a lot of ways. This is a hard question for me to answer, because the way there were scenes that I was most excited about shooting before we started shooting. And a couple days into shooting this movie, I realized that I hate the word vision. It just sounds so pompous, and I hate it. But like, for lack of a better one, the vision that I had, the movie that was in my head, that we were trying to film, it wasn't going to be possible for a million reasons. Much of it being that the movie in my head was not the budget movie that we were having to make. And so there were scenes that I was very, very excited about that ended up being almost impossible to shoot because my I bit off more than I could chew in trying to do them. But that's so much what filmmaking is pivoting, problem solving, in the moment trying to figure out another way to do it because it's not going to work the way that we planned. And I love that part of it. So what ended up being my favorite scene to shoot is not at all what I thought it was going to be. It is a scene where the two of them are fighting in their bedroom and the camera doesn't move. It just sits on them. And I love it because we just got to focus on these two actors getting to work together almost like it's a stage play where there's no marks to hit. I let them just like move. We set up the camera so that they could move anywhere. And it was like, you can move out of frame. It doesn't matter. Just like live this scene. And we did 3 takes of it. I could hardly see because I was bawling every single one. It's magic for me to just create a space, a stage where actors can just play. And I very much love that scene, but then that doesn't end up being my favorite scene in the movie. My favorite scene in the movie, it was maybe the hardest one to shoot, that I'm not going to share at this moment. But it's just my point just being that it's so this kind of filmmaking that is low budget, that is, just get out there and do it. And even with incredible amounts of talent in the room on every job, you're just going to run into insane problems, and things aren't going to go right. And it's an ability, I think, and a testament to the whole team to be able to pivot and make things work. That is so much of the magic of filmmaking. It's so thrilling that it's part of why I'm so hooked on it.
Yeah, there's just to add to that for a second, the most beautiful thing about making tiny films like we do is we are under-resourced, underfunded, I don't know what's the word, talented. but because of all that, every movie that's made is a miracle, but especially with all the constraints that we have. And the coolest part of making these movies is kind of moving towards that finish line. Million things go wrong, but because a million things go wrong, a million like miracles happen. And like, we say it all the time, making movies is magic. And to like go on that journey and to take those leaps and to see the ground to come up to meet you and to, just have these, it really is, it's miraculous, it's magical. And it's why we keep making movies. And it's almost like, man, if we were fully funded, if we were fully resourced, would we lose that part of it to some degree? But I just wanted to touch on that a little bit of, in part to encourage other filmmakers to just go out and make something, because it's really rewarding in a way like nothing else I've ever done.
Mm-hmm. I also think when films like this, where you do have less, a smaller budget or less accessibility, it gives you that space to allow for improv to happen more, because it's not so many executives are on top of your script or making sure that the script is locked down. So I'd love to know, Jordan, how do you kind of go about improv with your actors? Do you limit them to a few takes, or do you what is your process with that?
Well, we're limited to a few takes just because we have very limited time.
Very true.
We the amount of we shot this film in 14 days, which felt like a luxury, as compared to This World Alone, which we shot in 9.5.
Wow.
But 14, it is really tight. And
Yeah.
so you're conscious not just of you know, trying to make sure that we get everything, but also that everybody feels taken care of, that nobody's feeling like we're, you know, going overtime. Like, you know, we want everybody to remain happy and excited and all of that. So, but as far as you know, letting them improv, I love to let them improv. It's my favorite thing, and I know Hudson loves it too. Even though sometimes I'm looking over at Hudson like, are they just like they are they are they just skipping over all your favorite lines? You know, I'm also conscious of Hudson and wanting to make sure that and because I also am in love with his writing, and you know, the story that he's created is, you know, the core of this. We're trying to tell the best story that we can, and that the foundation of that is the script. And so we end up having a lot of little conversations on set, as far as like, you know, me asking Hudson like, what do you think we missed anything in that take that you feel like we really need to make sure that they say, or that sort of thing. So we have a lot of little conversations like that. But as far as you know, I think for both of us, it's an essence. It's a you know, it's an idea that we're trying to accomplish in a scene, more than it is some snappy line or, you know, something specific. I think about this thing a lot that I heard William H. Macy say about Fargo a long time ago, that he like said a line a little differently than it was written, and the Coen brothers were like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
we wrote it like this, so you could say it like this. And they make a very different kind of film than we do, and love Coen brothers films. So it's not a dig at them, but that's not how we make movies. I think we make movies in a way that allows for a little bit more freedom, or a lot more freedom of the actors, and we love that. It's so much fun to, you know, and in this movie it happened a lot with both Sophie and Randy. But I mean, some of the we find a lot of the funniest lines are things that Randy came up with on the spot, that we love to take credit for, but then we will also say, you know, that was all him, and a real testament to the amount of himself and effort that he put into that character.
Yeah. Well, we've been on with you guys for a while now. We really appreciate all the time that you guys have given us today to talk about Guacamole Yesterdays, which we're so excited to be able to promote to people when it is available. Do you guys have any information on when people are going to be able to see this film, and when it can be made available to people, whether it's going to be on streaming or VOD or whatever have you?
Yeah, it's bad timing, and that is still a question mark, but I can tell you that we're working on that now and entertaining a number of options to get it out to the world. My best guess is that well, first of all, guacamoleyesterdays.com, or following us at Guacamole Yesterdays on social media, you'll be the first to know when it comes out into the world. We have our production company Mirrorbox Films has a Substack that you can sign up for at guacamoleyesterdays.com. And we'll be sharing lots of information about what's next. The first place you can probably catch it is we're planning a tour, either late fall or early next year. We'll be coming to a number of cities all across the United States, and we will be there in person, and we'll be screening the film. We'll be doing a Q&A afterwards, and a lot of cool stuff around that at art house theaters and potentially some college campuses. So sign up for that kind of Substack, and you'll be able to share that information with you, or Instagram. And then it should be out into the world on VOD, iTunes, Amazon, and all that kind of stuff. My best guess would be March of next year. Don't hold me to that, but it will be something like that early next year. So a couple of ways to see it, either in person or online at that point. So.
Awesome. Well, the last question I have for you guys is really different, off-topic sort of thing, but for either one of you guys, do you have a dream collaborator, whether that's writing for a certain performer or directing a certain performer, or a dream adaptation? And Hudson, it can be comic book related, because you said you're a comic book fan. If that's something you're interested in, and Jordan, anything for you, and or whatever you guys want.
Oh man, you got one, Jordan?
Well, I've always wanted to work with Kathy Bates. It seems like that window is closed. She said that this last this last series or whatever she's doing now is her last thing, but I just think she's phenomenal. And I for many, many, many years, I've always just wished that I could work with her because I just think it would be amazing.
You gotta go direct an episode of, is it Matlock that she's doing right now?
Yeah, on
Yeah,
CBS.
Matlock. That's gonna be your
okay,
shot.
well, here I am. Okay.
Mine, I mean, my giant dream is to write a Marvel movie. I just am so in love with that world, and longtime defender of it lately, but I would write anything in that world and kind of have some projects I would love to do. In terms of collaborators, I think Ryan Gosling is who I would most want to work with.
Of course.
And who my wife also wants me to work with the most. So that'll be.
Well, maybe we could do, and Kathy, I hope you're listening. Let's do like I don't know. I am not into the Marvel stuff like Hudson is, but we can do like a geriatric Marvel
Kathy Bates,
movie.
Ryan Gosling, Marvel.
Yeah, just an
We'd be
aging.
seated.
Yes, we're there, front row. Kevin Feige, if you're listening, let's try to do a Ghost Rider movie. We'll get Gosling on the bike.
That's
Get
right.
Kathy Bates there. We'll get it going. But
yeah, see that's a Marvel movie that I would be interested in directing.
There you go. Let's do it.
we got to see if we can make it happen for you guys. But honestly, thank you guys again so much for taking the time to talk to both myself and Liz today. We really love the movie, and we're going to do everything we can to get the word out. And everybody who's listening and watching this, be sure to check out whenever and however you can Guacamole Yesterdays. Go to all their social media, follow that stuff. That stuff is all on our social media as well. And just again, thank you guys so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Man,
Yeah,
Darren and
thank you,
Liz,
Darian,
thank you.
Liz. You guys are awesome. Really
Yeah.
appreciate
That was
it.
great. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
I'm
Talk to you
really
soon.
sad it's over.
I know. Could've
We'll
talked for
stay in
another
touch. We'll
hour.
talk about your next project whenever it's ready.
Okay, sounds
All
great.
right.
Thanks, Phil.
All right. Thank
See
you
you guys
guys.
soon. Bye.
Thank
All right,
you.
bye-bye.
This is The Culture,